for making our time to join. And thank you especially to our presenter for today's webinar, Dr. Panton, for making time out of your very busy schedule to be with us, to give us this very interesting talk, which I have looked forward to. I want to say thank you to those who could join us last year. And for those who couldn't join us, you have the time to join us this year. Make it a date, join and appreciate what is happening around the conservation community. It's not all about birds, it's all about conservation and the people. So without taking much time, I just want to say thank you all for joining. And thank you, Dr. Panton, for making time to give us this talk. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Father.
Thank you, Ma, for the welcoming address. And for the webinar today, sorry to start with, I'm Kazi Nanchin, and I'll be moderating the webinar for today. And the person giving us the talk for today is Dr. Panton Mark, as the manager has rightly said. And Dr. Panton is, let me just give a brief and straightforward description. He's a medical doctor and he loves nature. I can say on behalf of Just Bird Club that we are proud to have a member like that. You know, he never ceases to participate in whatsoever activities we have. And unless it's not in town, he's always there on all of the outings that we have as a club. And for today, he's going to be giving us a talk on the topic, the healing touch of bird watching. And as we join in, please, I will want us to mute ourselves, and only when we have a question that we can just use the icon to raise our hands, or we drop the question in the chat box. But I want us all to make welcome Dr. Panton Mag. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nanchin, for that poignant introduction. I'll just go right away to share my screen and go ahead and, yeah. Right, on the presentation. Okay, great. Can you see it?
Sure.
Okay, great. So sometimes you like to get a tactile feedback when you are on Zoom, because sometimes you just feel like you're talking to yourself alone. And you're wondering if everything is okay, because you're just speaking and you're not getting any feedback in form of nodding. You know, when you're talking to people and you can see them, you can notice when people are nodding. I mean, it means that you're making sense. But with this Zoom, you're only looking at your screen, so you're not really sure what if there's anyone there. So yes, my name is Panton Mark. I'm a physician. I'm a gastroenterologist. I love medicine. After medicine, I love nature. And the combination of the two is what brings out this topic of the healing touch of bird watching. And it's something that I have personally experienced. The touch of this, of just watching birds, how therapeutic it is to me as an individual. So what I'm talking about is experiential. It's not just book knowledge or what is off the internet. It's something that I have personally experienced myself. I mean, even on Sunday, just this past Sunday, I saw stone partridges. Yeah, I mean, I've heard them call at the Aplori, the Amurum Forest, but this Sunday I saw them. I was indoors all day, so I mean I felt claustrophobic and thought I should just go out for a little walk up the mountain, and behold, those things just made me feel very, very happy indeed. So I have experienced the healing touch of bird watching on several occasions, and it's why I'm talking about it. In terms of disclosure. Right. I have no disclosure at all. That means nobody's funding me to give this topic, and I have no conflict of interest at all, apart from the fact that I'm interested in nature. I love nature. I love conservation. I really, really look forward to a time whereby we as a people will know the value of nature. And I've been completely appalled when I go to certain sites and I see the land being destroyed and rocks being broken down, and things that are of very important value to us are being destroyed, and nobody is saying anything about it. A couple of weeks back, I was in Mombasa in Kenya, and it was fascinating to know that inside the city, there were lots of monkeys all over the place. There were monkeys, and nobody was attacking them or anything. And it's Africa. It's part of Africa. So it was a good lesson for me, because I used to think that, okay, maybe because we're in Africa, that's why everybody's just talking about bushmeat all the time and eating this. But these guys are just roaming the street and nobody's touching them. So it means that it's something that with advocacy, people can become conscious of their environment as it is, and respect nature and not destroy the things that are made available to us. Yeah, so this is Morgan Freeman and Tim Hooks. These gentlemen, I don't know how many of you recognize them and which movie this is. This is Shawshank Redemption. It's one of my favorite movies, and it's a movie that is set in 1994, but it's based on a book by Stephen King, a 1982 novel by Stephen King. So in this particular movie, this gentleman, Andrew Dufay, as he was called in the movie, it's the main character of the movie, and he's one of the guys that he was incarcerated in prison simply because he was accused of killing his wife and her lover, whom he found in bed, even though he denies that he was not the one responsible for that, but he was incarcerated in prison. But it is such a lovely movie that if you've never watched it, I think it's a movie that you should watch. But why am I talking about Shawshank Redemption when we're supposed to be talking about bird watching? It is simply because there is a statement in the movie, there's this quotation in the movie that caught my attention, and I would like you to listen. Yeah, I'll just start it again from the beginning. Yeah, so I hope, were you able to watch that clip?
Actually, there was
Can I get a feedback?
no audio.
No audio?
Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine? And that's the crux, the sweetness of the whole there. Right, is that for everyone?
Yes,
No one had
no audio.
Oh, duh. Okay. Right.
I have to remind myself that some birds aren't meant to.
Yeah, how about now? Any audio?
Okay.
Are you here?
The part of you that knows it was a sin to lock them up does rejoice. But still, the place you live in is that much more drab and they're gone. I guess I just miss my friend.
Okay. So anyway, we'll just continue. I'm sorry about the audio. I should have just practiced with the live streaming to know how to sort that out. But essentially, it was this quotation I wanted you to get. Some birds aren't meant to be caged. Their feathers are just too bright. So this was what he was talking about, that, sometimes it was just a quotation, but it really caught my attention, because in what he was saying is that when you release these birds that aren't supposed to be caged, In your mind, you feel that joy of knowing, since you knew that they're not supposed to be caged, having let them go. Your mind is filled with joy and happiness. But at the same time, also, the fact that they have gone and the space which they initially occupied is now empty, you feel that sense of emptiness because they are gone. And in several ways, it sort of wraps up what I'm going to be talking about today. The fact that the beauty of the birds, when you see them, fills you with joy. And when you don't see them, because that's a synonym for the empty cage, it fills your heart with gloom. All right. Now, this is a scenery of a 20th century sanatorium. So there is a disease which is known as tuberculosis, which is fairly a common disease a lot of people know about. Before the advent of antibiotics, patients who had tuberculosis, which by the way is a disease that is spread, but it's an airborne disease. Therefore, people can get infected by just breathing air that is contaminated with tuberculobacilli, and they can get infected. So this disease was widespread in Europe. It was known as the consumption. It used to kill a lot of people. It still does kill a lot of people in Nigeria anyway. But with the advent of antibiotics, it's less of a dangerous disease as it used to be. Although still an important disease of public health importance, it is not as deadly as it used to be. But that's not the important point I want to make. The important point I want to make is that in those early years when antibiotic was not available, one of the methods that was employed to treat patients who have tuberculosis was to take them to a scene where they get exposed to nature, right? That form of treatment is called ecotherapy, where you can see lots of trees, lots of mountains, and lots of the ambience of the environment is what these patients are exposed to. It is believed that when they get exposed to fresh air outside, they receive some form of healing. Whether this used to work or not, it's a subject of further discussion. But it is a well-known method of treatment of people. And for a very long time, people have known that nature heals, right? I tried to look up on the internet who is the father of ornithology, and I saw someone who worked in India or something like that, being credited as the father of ornithology. But for us in medicine, the god and the grandfather of medicine is known as Hippocrates, right? Hippocrates, he is a well-revered figure in medicine. He's known as the father of medicine, actually, or sometimes called the god of medicine, because of in early days of medicine, he is that we know about. So when you mention the name Hippocrates, every doctor knows who Hippocrates is. And in one of his books, which is known as he wrote a lot of treatises. So, but in the 6th book of the Hippocratic treatise on epidemic diseases, we read that he wrote that nature heals diseases, right? So that's what I'm reading now. It says, nature heals diseases. Natures are physicians of diseases. So, I mean, a statement like this credited to the father of medicine is not a statement that you take lightly, isn't it? It goes without saying that the doctrine has been supported by all the great physicians from Galen, and Galen is one of the greatest anatomists that has ever lived. So no training of medicine is without the input of Galen. Same thing with Farnell, Paracelsus. This is the guy who designed the Celsius thermometer. Sydenham, the Lennick, this is the person who developed the stethoscope that we use nowadays, and Vickers. He is credited with a lot of development in medicine, but these are grandfathers of medicine, and they have talked about the fact that nature heals diseases, and they've credited nature with a status of being a physician in itself, right? Yeah. So, and why am I talking about nature? Because you know that when you go bird watching, they are definitely interacting with nature, right? So how does nature affect our well-being? Nature heals, nature soothes, and nature responds, restores, right? In terms of the healing effect of nature, being out in nature, viewing the wonderful scenery of nature has been credited with being able to reduce anger, reduce fear, and reduce stress, and also increases a pleasant feeling, which for those of us that are participating in the bird watching activity and conservation, this is not news to you, because all of you would have experienced this. Like I told you at the beginning of this presentation, that I have personally experienced what I'm talking about. And it's well known. And what is even more interesting is that it's not just claims, you know, it's a different thing when people who have a particular hobby try to make their hobby sell by having false claims, sort of what you hear when people are selling things like the GNLD products, where you find one drug that cures all sorts of diseases, making claims that are not real about certain things. But this is not the situation. This is not the case here in when we talk about the healing impact of bird watching. This is something that has tons of literature to back it. So there's scientific evidence to support what I'm talking about. The issue of reducing of stress, which we're going to get to that. Also, exposure to nature not only makes you feel better emotionally, it contributes to your physical well-being. We have seen that in the past, people who had tuberculosis, who had physically challenged with their health, were taken out to sanatoriums where they are exposed to nature, and it's believed that this ecotherapy, it's going to heal them. And I have put this reducing blood pressure. You can see that I marked it in black because it's important that I, as a physician, is talking about nature reducing blood pressure. I have said that I have no disclosures, but I also want to just state clear that I strongly believe that drugs work. I believe that people who are hypertensive or have diabetes or certain diseases need to have pharmacotherapy. That's use of drugs to cure their diseases. But beyond pharmacotherapy, there are non-pharmacologic methods that actually work as well. And there are lots of them also. And I, as a physician, have used a lot of them. In terms of psychotherapy, exposure therapy, ecotherapy, and I can testify that it works, all right? And exposure to nature has been documented and demonstrated in evidence-based to show that it can reduce blood pressure, okay? Where in both animals and dogs, actually, and it was, I think, was done in Scotland, where people were exposed to green environment. No, it was actually people who lived in an environment that was heavily populated with trees, lots of parks, lots of green areas, and people who lived in the urban area that didn't have access to those things. Their cortisol levels were tested at different times and realized that both the human beings and the animals had lower levels of cortisol compared to those who live in those areas, in urban areas where they didn't have exposure to the healing touch of nature. And also studies have also shown that cortisol is one of the hormones that drive blood pressure elevation. Okay, so we know that if you have high levels of cortisol, one of the key manifestations is elevated blood pressure levels. And that also goes with increase in heart rate and muscle tensions. Therefore, if you have lower levels of these hormones, it goes to say that you are likely going to have lower levels of blood pressure, better heart rate control, and reduce in your muscle tension, right? And then decrease in production of stress hormones. Stress hormones are hormones like the cortisol I just talked about, adrenaline, and the likes, glucagon as well. Those are hormones those are stress hormones. But it's been shown that when you go out in nature, the levels of these hormones are reduced, right? So thus prove the effect of nature on our health. Beyond the healing effect of nature, nature also soothes the body, okay? It helps us to cope with pain, because of the distracting effect of nature, yeah? We are genetically programmed to find beautiful things around us to calm us down, okay? We are absorbed by the scenes and we get distracted from our pain and discomfort, whether it's a physical pain or it's an emotional pain or it's a mental pain. Because we are programmed to be distracted by nature, when we go out into nature, these ailments are attenuated. We feel a little bit better because of the effect of nature, all right? Now, if you do a quick search on YouTube, YouTube is one of my favorite websites. So I watch YouTube a lot. So if you do a quick search on YouTube about stress relief or calming music, what you're going to see is a lot of beautiful sceneries of nature. You're going to see a lot of music. It's either water is pouring or birds are chipping away or birds are singing. And, that's what comes up immediately. In the first 100 hits you're going to get at things like that. So that further goes to support what we're talking about the soothing effect of nature. And it goes across board. It doesn't matter whether you're interested in nature or not. once you see pictures of beaches, of a green landscape, of just nature, of a wonderful display of color of nature, you're carried away, and your mind gets distracted. This is something that has been genetically programmed in us, so there's really nothing we can do about it. Now, I have said before that I'm not just making claims, okay? There's scientific evidence to back what I'm saying, right? So this nicely demonstrated study shows that nature can also help with pain tolerance, right? So we know what the gallbladder is, right? So in this study, they tried to look at two groups of patients. One group was exposed to nature, so they were actually, what happened in this study, let me just put it in context, is that people who had gallbladder surgery were kept in the same room. One of the patients is sitting by the window where there's beauty of nature and the patient can see that beauty. And the other patient is on the other side where he's facing the wall and does not have access to the view which the patient by the window is having. All right? Yeah. So what they found out is that, and they've repeated it on several studies. I think this study had a sample population of 115 or thereabouts. It's over 100 samples, right? But what they found out is that the patients with the view of trees tolerated pain better. They appear to nurses to have fewer negative effects, and they spend a significantly less amount of time in the hospital. They spend a significantly less amount of time. Like the director has mentioned, when you talk about bird watching, you're not just talking about bird watching, you're talking about nature, you're talking about conservation. And I'm trying to merge these two together, because basically, if you're talking about bird watching, you're talking about being out in nature, experiencing nature, using the whole of your senses to have this experience. It's not just about the sense of sight, it's about the sense of smell, the sense of touch, your ability to feel awe and just be carried away by the moment. And besides nature's ability to soothe us, nature also has the ability to restore, right? So, and in medicine, we talk about healing, we talk about restoration, and we talk about soothing. So there are people who require restoration, there are people who require healing, and there are people who require soothing. For those who have terminal ill diseases, you can't really do anything about it, but you want to soothe their discomfort. And nature has all these attributes inbuilt in it, okay? So time spent in nature since is associated with a positive mood. You remember the talk that I gave before, where a study that was done by University of Exeter showed that people who went out in nature and saw significantly higher number of birds had a better mental health compared to those who didn't do that. So that's also evidence-based. So it's not something that we're just laying claim over, right? And then nature also increases our ability to pay attention. And this goes without saying, you know, you go into a thick forest and then there's a bird chirping, or then there's a sudden movement of the leaves, and you get this rapt attention. You want to find out what's that bird. I caught myself looking at a mouse bed today. I was just going to walk into the hospital, and then I heard the call, and immediately I turned around and I just laughed at myself, because it's just the awareness. You just become attentive to your environment. And I looked around me, and no one else was looking up into the sky to see the bird that just just chirped and passed away. You know, so it increases your ability to pay attention, because humans also find nature inherently interesting. We can naturally focus on what we experience out in nature, right? So this is also talking about issue of focus. You know, one of the problems with mental health is lack of focus. Yeah, inability to focus. The distraction just gets people worked up and worked up and worked up. All right. Nature also provides us with a respite for our overactive minds, especially in this day and age. You know, the situation where everything is going off. You know, our minds are always thinking. You're thinking of where the next meal is going to come. You're thinking of who next is going to be kidnapped. You're thinking about where am I going to get fuel? There's just so much bombarding your mind. When you take time to go into nature, interact with nature, watch birds, watch the butterflies, watch the dragonflies, and you know, all those things take your attention away from the overactive mind and makes you to be able to relax, okay? And this is also another interesting study. ADHD means attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I know it's a very heavy medical jargon, but what happens in this clinical condition is that it's a disease that is seen among children. Now, these children have inability to focus, right? I've seen only one case when I was a house officer. This boy was on the ward. It was when we were in the old site. It was a 16-bed ward. This boy alone scattered the whole ward. He scattered because they can't sit in one place. They are running here, they are jumping here, they're climbing the window. These are the children that have fractures every day because they are flying, they are jumping, they can't sit down, they can't read and write. You ask them to write 1 to 10, they write 1 and they are off. They carry the book and tear it or throw it inside water, and very crazy, very crazy. But these studies have shown that children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder show that time spent in nature increases their attention span later, right? So when they were exposed to nature, they tend to become a lot more attentive. The problem with those children is that they can't be attentive. They have attention deficit. So that's English, right? Attention deficit. So they have a deficiency of their ability to pay attention. But nature has been demonstrated to able to help them to focus a lot more. So that's one of the benefits of nature. And again, I keep emphasizing, this is not just word of mouth. This is evidence-based, okay? There's tons of data to show that this is what happens, right? So I tell you a story about this young lady. After months of fruitless searching for a job, after graduation, Cheryl was losing confidence in herself. Since she was depressed, her parents gifted her with 2 weeks of wilderness training. Interesting, isn't it? Wilderness training. I never knew there was anything like that. So Cheryl returned a new person. Of her experience, she said, I learned the depth of my strength and how much I could accomplish. My courage surprised me. Being surrounded by nature reminded me to keep the big picture in mind, not only during my wilderness experience, but also when I return home. Life is in front of me and I have lots of options, right? So it's a very powerful statement. Now, for people who are familiar with mental health disorders, when you find someone who is challenged mentally, who is facing depression, mental mood disorders, I mean, for you to be able to get a patient to have this form of experience, which is described by Cheryl, requires a lot of medication. It requires a lot of psychotherapy, a lot of behavioral therapy, a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's a lot of work that goes into helping people who have got a lot of mental health challenges. But here is someone who's facing depression, just having this experience with nature and coming back renewed person. And that is powerful. That is a very powerful effect of nature that you cannot underestimate, right? Now, this is also a story from the BBC blog page, so I deliberately chose BBC because it has a reputation. So it's not just hearsay, it is something that is evidence-based also. So it talks about this gentleman called Joe Harkness, all right? So I don't know which one of them is Joe, but what happened is that Joe is also a guy that also experienced the healing touch of nature. But specifically for Joe, it was bird watching that healed him of his depression. So he was this guy that was depressed. He had suicidal ideation, and by suicidal ideation, I mean this is someone who has considered killing himself. He felt that life is not worth living because of his depression. He felt like killing himself. He was addicted to gambling. He was addicted to debt. And, he was just a mess of himself. But because his dad, when he was younger, had exposed them to nature, had been taking them out on camping trips, he just decided to go bird watching one of the evenings. And he watched a falcon just preen itself, and just the things that the birds do when you go out bird watching. And that rejuvenated him to a completely different person, that even he can't believe that this is the effect he has had simply by just bird watching. And he created this website called Bird Therapy. So it's just a website where you have people who love bird watching go to get information about birds and just different things about birds, which has for them just made life interesting for people. One of the things I saw on his website was a list of 20 birds that are purple in color, that, I mean, pink, was it pink or purple? Yeah, one of those colors, that things that you don't think about. And there's one that says list of 20 birds that have very long beaks that are about so length and things. So very curious facts about bird watching, but the important point here is that bird watching was instrumental to his ability to manage depression, his depressive state, his suicidal ideation. Just to buttress my point. The fact that if a patient has suicidal ideation, is an indication for us to admit the patient. So if I see a patient in the accident and emergency, and I ask the patient, have you considered killing yourself? And the patient says yes. Even if the patient is looking healthy and doesn't have any reason to be admitted, the fact that he has considered killing himself is sufficient for me to admit him into the hospital for the purpose of safety. So that's how serious the suicidal ideation is. And you can see that someone who's suffering from suicidal ideation has got to a point where he has become so useful in society that he has a website for people to go and get some healing touch. Moving on, dementia. Now, some of us may be aware may know what dementia is. Dementia is simply a disease that affects the mind. It's a chronic disease. It's a disease of the elderly people. The crux of it is the fact that these individuals lose themselves. So they don't know who they are anymore. They forget themselves. They can't, even if they see their children, they don't recognize them. They see their husbands, they don't know who the husband is. Their carers, the people that are taking care of them every day, when they see them every day, they ask them to introduce themselves to them because they've forgotten who they are. So you forget yourself completely, right? But there's recent evidence has shown that, and there are different things that have been tried to help people with dementia, to cope with dementia. In one of the hospitals I used to work outside this country, they had a space inside the hospital where they had bird feeders, they had a lot of trees and forage so that birds could come around, and the dementia patients would be brought out in the daytime to just come sit there and experience nature, experience the birds chirping, see the birds feeding themselves, and different things like that. And those have been shown statistically to improve. Thank you very much. Somebody brought cake for me, so I said thank you. Okay, yeah. So Bird Tales, it's a project that's being carried out, sponsored by the Toyota Green Foundation, where birds that are different models of birds that are stuffed with stuffed birds are given to these patients to hold. And when they press them, the birds make certain calls, different types of calls. And what happened is that when they introduce these patients who have dementia to this program, where they're given these dummy birds, and they're also taken out to nature to watch birds come around where they are, and that there has been a dramatic improvement in their personality. People that were not remembering to smile were found to be able to smile, and the interaction became significantly positive. And I found this reflection to be quite interesting. This is a reflection by on the Bird Tales and its impact on her residents. One of the care service directors said, "We have found through this wonderful program how incredibly comforting, reassuring, and secure the sound of bird calls, vocalization, and songs can be to those in distress. This program is nothing short of amazing. One day, we may all be afflicted with these horrific diseases." I know if it's in Nigeria, I would say, God forbid, isn't it? So in the spirit of being a full Nigerian, God forbid. So one day, we all may be afflicted with this horrific disease. If I am, I only hope Bird, one of the community education coordinator. I'm getting feedback. Oh, I'm getting a feedback in my ear. Someone is speaking. Right. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so next. So I'm going to use this last few slides to wrap up my talk about, so all along I've been talking about the healing touch of nature, how nature plays its role in healing, and how bird watching is intertwined with nature. But now honing down on bird watching in itself, right? Yeah, there are 7 benefits which I've been able to identify, and we're going to go through some of them. One of them is mindfulness. Bird watching encourages mindfulness, which psychologists have usually described as living in the present moment, with less emotional energy being expended and things that have passed away and which may or may not occur in the future, right? So with mindfulness, it's just being your ability to live for the moment. You're just living. You're not bothered about what has happened in the past. You're not bothered about what is going to happen when you leave where you are and what is going to happen in the future. You're not interested in who is going to win the Premier League, Premiership, who's going to win the election, who's going to replace Baba Buhari, or whether the salaries are going to come at the end of the month. You're not interested in that. You're living for the moment. And that is what one of the things that bird watching achieves. It helps you to live for the moment, because when you're out there in the bush, you're just enjoying the moment, right? You're being attentive to the next movement, to the next call, to the next shrub where you can see a bird that you haven't seen. And the importance of this is seen in the fact that there are lots of techniques that have been encouraged to have been brought upon to teach people the act of mindfulness. Meditation, yoga, stress reduction techniques, all these things. Even certain religions like the Buddhists, they emphasize on this concept of mindfulness, where you're encouraged to live for the moment. And here we are with a hobby that just effortlessly teaches you to be mindful. Effortlessly teaches you to be mindful. And there is this last point here where you have this technique called the mindfulness-based stress reduction technique, which has proven scientific effect to reduce stress. So when I talked about the fact that being out in nature and bird watching reduces stress, basically we're drawing a conclusion based on the fact that bird watching helps you to be mindful, and mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques have been proven to work. So if you're out there, you're being mindful while bird watching, you're actually reducing your stress levels clearly. And one of the things that stress does is that just before I had this presentation, I finished seeing a patient, and we're talking about how his immunity is low, and he's asking what's making my immunity low. And I talked to him about the fact that stress can make your immunity to drop low, right? Yeah. So when we say bird watching improves your immunity, what we're trying to say is that when you read bird watching improves your stress level, your immunity also improves. So there's a direct relationship. And these are real things that have happened to people. And I have said tons and tons of time here that I have experienced it. So I'm talking passionately about it because I'm the true beneficiary of the effect of it. And I know a lot of you are, because quite a number of you on this webinar are bird watchers, right? And to add to it, this is from the Journal of Environmental Psychology, isn't it? That they also demonstrated that bird sounds and their contribution to perceived attention restoration and stress recovery. So it's not hearsay. It is something that is real. It's something that is happening, and people are benefiting from it. You can also benefit from it if you are not one of those who goes out bird watching or goes out to have time in nature, experience the beauty of nature and the healing effect of nature. You should make it one of the things that you do. Another benefit of bird watching is that it keeps you physically active. You exercise. Even walking for a time leads to an increase in endorphins. When you exercise, right, you have increased levels of endorphins. And the interesting thing about endorphins is that endorphins are hormones in the human body that they are called happiness hormone. So when you meet a friend who you haven't met in a long time and you are excited, you are shaking each other, you're hugging each other, and you're feeling happy, what is actually happening at the cellular level is that your body is producing endorphins, right? Which is what we call the happiness hormone. And what happiness hormone does is boost your mood, also helps you to reduce stress level and just even more clearer. When you see people who have become addicted to cocaine, they've become addicted to heroin. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, please.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, great. I just got a message saying my internet is unstable, so I thought maybe I lost you. Okay, yeah, so I was talking about endorphins. So when you see people who are addicted to heroin, people who are addicted to cocaine, what actually happens is that when they take these substances, those substances increase the level of endorphins within their body, and it makes them feel on top of the world. They are so happy when they take this thing. Here we are talking about endorphins and talking about bird watching. Bird watching and exercise actually increases the amount of endorphins within your body. To just blow your mind, endorphins are also what makes human beings also enjoy sexual acts. I mean, these are to the people who are sexually active. The endorphins are the direct cause of sexual pleasure. So you can see we're making a relationship with bird watching and this level of enjoyment of life. Yeah. So even if you don't have money, yeah, you can still enjoy yourself. You can still go out and watch birds, and you receive the same level of endorphins these people are. And then it also helps you with exercise for people who are on the weighty side. This is my picture and my Oga, Joe. This is 1,800 feet above sea level. We climbed this mountain with Joe. That's the peak of Sherry Hills. And it's interesting to know that I don't remember exactly, but I think we saw 67 different bird species on this day that we went bird watching. It was a very exciting outing. And also the exercise we got, it was 1,800 feet above sea level. We climbed that mountain. I felt proud of myself. I thought I was old, but clearly I'm not. I haven't been able to achieve this feat with Joe. And Joe was just, he was just climbing the mountain as if he, so I realized that he keeps climbing this mountain behind Aplori where he's going to watch his butterflies. So bird watching also helps you to gain stamina, to become physically fit. Okay, so that's also another benefit, right? So you can see how excited this chap is, isn't it? That's what endorphin does to you. When you exercise, endorphins are released into the body. When you are excited, endorphins are released into the body. When you go bird watching, endorphins are released into the body. When you catch a bird in flight, when you see a beautiful turako flying and you take a picture of it, oh my God, it's just mind-blowing, you know, very mind-blowing. And then on and on, evidence also to show that nature, the experience in nature is more than it meets the eye. There's just tons of documents to show. One of the things that, one of the evidences that is available is this way, I'm sorry, I didn't highlight it, but it shows that it's said that when you go out in nature, certain plants and animals produce this, basically plants, phytocyte, or was it phyton sites, right? Yeah, so these phyton sites have been implicated in the stress reduction of nature, ability to improve your immune system as well. And also the fact that when you are out in nature, you stimulate the whole of your senses. So it's not just the sense of, it's not just really the sense of sight that is stimulated when you're out there, your sense of smell, your sense of taste, you're just awestruck basically, right? Like a psychologist, Jonah Pickett, explains the value of awe in his book, Awestruck. He writes, awe blurs the line between the self and the world around us, diminishes the ego and links us to the greater forces that surround us in the world and the larger universe. So bird watching provides many opportunities to experience wonder, surprise, amazement, whether it is spotting a new bird species, hearing an unusual call that you've never heard before, or watching a display of mating ritual, or birds watching definitely provides many, many awe moments. And this moment comes to mind immediately when I read this particular part. Remember the outing we went to Shen, where we saw this, did we end up saying that this is a grasshopper buzzard or something? Yeah. So basically, and the cattle egrets, the funny bird waits for the cattle egrets to rattle the grasses, and then the grasshoppers, when they fly, then the eagle goes after them and goes. It was quite exciting, and I know that almost every one of us just stood in amazement and just looking at how brilliant and smart the bird is at that moment. And this and lots of, I told you about my experience with the rock partridges just 2 days back. And each and every one of us has amazing experiences with finding new bird species or watching birds behave in a very strange way. Yesterday, when I was coming out of the morning meeting, and then I saw the African silverbird going into an old nest of the weavers to feed its young. Oh my God, I wish I had my camera, because it was just, I remember this professor on the page that keeps a very interesting fellow. Yeah, he mentioned the fact that they used the old Professor Oof. He mentioned the fact that the African silverbills, they used the nest of the weavers, right, I saw that yesterday. It was a mind-blowing moment for me. You know, it was that kind of an awe moment for me, where you really, really enjoy the fact that you're a bird watcher and you're aware of your environment. And finally, one of the things that bird watching does is that it makes you laugh, right? Yeah, it makes you laugh. Remember the old saying that laughter is the best medicine, right? There are studies that have backed it up. The fact that when you're out there, you're having a fun time, you're enjoying yourself, you're laughing with your colleagues and everything. Yeah, it reduces your stress, it suits your tension. In the long term, it relieves pain, it boosts your overall mood, it even improves your immune system. I mean, once your immune system is improved, what else are you waiting for? Nothing, because you're not likely to have any medical problem with your health, okay? With that last slide, I come to the end of my presentation. So for those of you who are not members of the Just Bird Club, I invite you to come and join the winning team. The winning team is Just Bird Club. Lots of great people. You get to meet people, new friends, you make new friends, form new connections, and beyond that, experience the joy of being out there and the healing touch that bird watching brings. Thank you very much for your time. And that's the end of my presentation. Right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ponton, for this interesting and fact-filled presentation. We are so grateful from the NIBA side here. But then now is time for the audience, please. If you have any question, you can either type it in the chat or please raise your hand to ask the question. So over to us. Any question? Okay, so if we don't have any question for Dr. Panton, I want to believe that all of us here learn one or two things from this presentation today. And we know for fact that bird watching is less, well, how will I even put it now? Let me not deviate from nature, because the whole thing is about nature, but bird watching is also part of nature. And we can see the healing powers that it possesses. And it's a welcoming field, is a new, basically, or relatively new field in Nigeria that we need lots and lots of people to join in. So if you're not part of any of the bird clubs, I would say now that you're missing, and it will be in your own good for you to join any of the clubs around you. But then now, sorry, there's a hand up. Jonathan Eveso. Do you have your hand up? Okay, so if there are no questions, I will still give a brief time to Dr. Talatu to say one or two things before we wrap up today's webinar. Thank you all.
Nantina, I think there is a question. If you check the chat box, I think there's a question from Joseph.
Okay, so I'll just read the question. It is a popular say that anything that have advantages also have disadvantages. Is there any disadvantage of bird watching, doctor?
Okay, yeah, it's a very, very, that's a brilliant question. I think I was a bit biased as an enthusiastic bird watcher, that I just focused on the benefits of bird watching alone. Right, and one of the things I didn't mention is that for older people, bird watching has been shown to also increase their arm muscle strength because of their posture of holding the binoculars, right? So it's been demonstrated to, also, but then also the posture of raising the neck up can also cause some back ache as well, right? So the benefit is on the upper arm, so the arm strength improves, but then also because of this posture to look up into the sky. for a long period, you can have some discomfort there. And I also posed a question to Joseph, my friend, about, I realized that that's me, while driving, I keep getting distracted looking at birds on the pole line. So I was asking him, is there any study that has shown where bird watchers are at risk of accidents because of the little distraction? Because when you are driving, a beautiful bird passes and your eyes go towards that. So yeah, I really don't know if there are any other disadvantages to bird watching. I really focus on the advantages because that's the one I'm interested in. So, but the experts are also here. So if there are other disadvantages to bird watching that you are aware of, I'm happy to hear them as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Doug. Joseph, you have your hand up, so please go on.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Pantonk. I raised my hand because of the point you just raised now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the question you actually asked me, I've discussed it with a couple of people, and there's actually a plan to carry out an experiment concerning that.
Okay,
So I've
great.
done a lot of literature search, but then I've not seen anything like that. So I discussed it with other senior colleagues, and then, yeah, they're also happy to key into it, and then possibly in the next coming months, maybe a year, we'll have an experiment to test that.
Okay, that would be great. Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Joe. Abubakar Ringim, your hand is up. Hello, Ringim. Can you hear me? Uh-oh. Hello, Ringim. Your hand is up. Or is that a mistake?
Probably your voice is traveling a long distance to reach him.
Okay. Most definitely. So, but then before Ringim will come up, before my voice will actually reach out to him, Dr. Talatu, if you have anything to say to our amazing participants today, please, you can continue.
I think Mr. Ringim has a message on the chat group. I think he's speaking and then you're not getting him. So
Okay.
he might need to unmute himself also.
Okay. Ringy, you need to unmute yourself.
He's not muted now.
He just unmuted himself. Maybe before he speaks, there's a question from Atama.
Okay. Yeah. Is there any study illustrating the level of endorphin generated? And to what intensity should one be engaged with nature to get adequate relaxing endorphin?
Okay, yeah. Also very, very, very brilliant question, Atama. So I haven't come across any study to show that the level of things that you measure routinely in clinical practice, okay? It's there are hormonal levels, there are hormonal assays. Hormonal assays are very expensive to do, but this is it's a well-known biochemical fact that endorphins, the happiness hormones, they're generated when you engage in happiness activity. Now, having said that, people have varying degrees of stimuli to which stimuli can excite them. Okay. Yeah, so for someone, I mean, just seeing one bird when he goes out is exciting enough. For somebody like Dr. Talatu, who has seen too many birds, she needs to see a very new bird that she hasn't seen in 10 years or so to excite her or thereabouts. So it varies really. So there isn't really a scale. But I think the point is to go out there and interact with nature and experience it. Yeah.
Doug, Ringim, maybe it would be good if you can just type in your question, because your hand is still up. And okay. So please, Dr. Talatu, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we, okay, I thought it was a question. So before maybe ringing connect, I want to especially say thank you, Dr. Phantom. I don't ever get tired of listening to this talk because I listened to it during the Just Bed Club week, and I looked forward to listening to it again. That's why we've been on you, despite the fact that you are very busy, we wanted to hear. Honestly, as I put in the chat box, it's actually endorphins, not in endorphin.
Yeah.
My endorphin level just increased, and my heartbeat is like faster just listening to this talk.
It's quite exciting.
And I am sure we will call you back sometimes within this year to give this talk again, because we will need it every now and then for our bird watchers, for our atlasers. And if I may beg, if you can send us a PDF copy, even though the video is going to be put up on our website for people that have not been able to join to have a look. And this talk is going to be a part of my talk with Dr. Panton as part of the presenter whenever we give our seminar presentation. I say thank you very much for this very interesting, inspiring, intelligent talk. And for all our participants, people that joined and the ones not able to join due to network issue, thank you for making the time. Thank you, 19, for coordinating and for organizing this. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you. Guys, have a lovely day.
Yeah. So, all right. Before you go off, please, I can see a write-up from Ringim. So please, I will just read it before we close for the day. So he said he just wanted to add a rider to what Dr. Panton said regarding the disadvantages of bird watching. And what he is saying is, I can simply say that bird watching is like cigarette smoking. It is addicting or addictive. And while driving, it is easy to get accident owing scouting birds. So just like the doctor rightly said that when you're driving, you keep turning left, right, backwards. It actually, what Ringim is saying is that it can actually cause road accidents from this movement that tend to distract us when we want to identify which bird is actually passing over. And quickly, please, there's another question from Boniface. He said, what is your take on those who village weaver colonies have made? Okay, let me make sense of this question. What is your take on those who village weaver colonies have made dislike birds generally?
Have made them to dislike birds generally, maybe, is what you want to ask.
Okay, so bird weavers make people to dislike birds generally. So how do we help them like birds again?
I think this question will be directed to the ornithologist. Yeah, because I mean, they are quite noisy, you know, when they gather around. And in my brother's house, they destroyed his palm tree because they were taking it off to go and make their nest. But I liked it because I was able to get very good shot of them because they are very close. So I think it's just going to be a trade-off, really. For them to be able to experience watching the birds very at close range and things like, I mean, and they're just living their life. Basically, you have to help them understand that the birds are actually living that. One of the fascinating things I find about birds is when when they nest and they have babies, the way they work assiduously to feed the children. Everybody is busy going to go and get food and bringing it. You know, we can learn that as human beings, especially men that don't take care of their family. Those birds can teach you. Yeah.
So that's fascinating. You know, the thing about bird watching is that there's never a dull moment. When you even get tired in the field, you can find a shade and relax and then continue. So bird watching, we learn, you know, we exercise through it, and then all these amazing health benefits that is attached to it, you know. You can never over estimate it. And even with the crazy noise that birds, village weavers make, you can learn to accommodate them, you know, because we must have to learn to live a balanced life, you know, to accommodate all. So on that note, we want to say thank you so much. Okay, sorry, again, Elisha, your hand is up. If you can hear me, please, you can go ahead and talk.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam Nancy. And as well, thank you, Dr. Panton. I want to add up a little because somebody pointed out this to me in one of our outing in Yankee Forest Reserve. And this is what he said. Let me quote him. Say binoculars, they kill eyes. So I had to reason with him. Yeah, he so got used to binoculars at some point. I think he got used to looking at the sun directly.
Okay.
I think that could be one of the disadvantage.
Yes, yes. True.
Yeah.
Yeah, because actually, I think if you buy a new binoculars and you look at the and also your camera to Elisha, I'm sure you see that you are advised not to look at the sun with it because of the magnification. You actually magnify and intensify the energy, solar energy directly onto your retina. So that can be bad.
That's
so
true.
You're advised not to look at the sun directly.
Yeah.
So maybe we should always say that to young bird watchers like me.
Yeah. So thank you so much again, Dr. Panton, for your time and for giving us this interesting presentation. Thank you to our amazing audience for making this webinar a memorable one. So on this note, if we don't have any more questions, on behalf of NIBAP, we're saying thank you once again for making our time to join us. If you can actually just bring up your video, it would be nice for you to just put on your video and just wave while we call it a night. So thank you so much for making our time to join.
Let me show off my office plant. So nature, even in the office, there are studies that have shown that if you have a plant in your office, you're a lot happier than those who don't have.
So we have one happy doctor over there. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for putting up your camera.
Yeah.
While you do that, good night. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Do take care. Good night.
Bye.
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 Good night. Bye.